I wrote a book, and it was a while ago, but one of the things that I instantly related, the woman that I related to the most in the Bible was the sinful woman, just known for her sin. You know,
That was her name, the Sinful
she
Woman.
was known as the sinful woman in Luke 7. Yes.
Woo.
Um,
Talk
yeah,
about
I
a
mean,
friend. Not
she
playing.
the
Sounds like
church
my friend.
leaders,
I think I know her. Not playing.
you do. Um, but anyway, the church leaders and everybody were just looking at her, and they're just pointing at her, and they're just say, she's a sinful woman. Again, no name or anything. And I worked in the jail system for a stint, and the women in there, I loved them and I related so much with them. But one of the things that they would do is that they would see themselves for what they did. Or, they'd just be like, hi, I'm so and so, and I'm a murderer, or I'm a prostitute. And that's how they saw themselves, as somebody in a moment in time, something that they did wrong. And that's their definition of themselves.
Yeah.
Or they allowed other definitions of themselves and shame and everything to overtake their own voices of themselves. Did you ever have other voices louder than yours to keep you from believing in yourself?
Probably say one of my shortcomings is maybe I come across as not truly believing in my talent. They say, well, you don't really understand, like, you don't understand how you can affect. I'm talking about me. Sorry. I guess it's in my podcast today, but, but
This
the,
is about you. This
I
is.
know that see, here we go. This is my point. Like, be like, I think sometimes believe in yourself, like be that one, be the one who comes up here and says, you know what, I do come into the room and I do light it up and I do feel good about it, but there's something about it where I feel like maybe it's that from my parents. I have to work and earn that, the ability to say that.
Oh,
And I don't believe that all the time, and I'd rather sit and figure it out and be patient with it sometimes. And I think some people can perceive that as me convincing myself that maybe I'm not worthy of something, or I'm not good enough at this, or or as a something that holds me back in certain areas. Yeah, I don't know. That felt good to say out loud, but now I feel like sheepish about it for some reason.
you are good and you do have an amazing message. So whether you want to own that or not, you
You know
do.
what's funny? You just remembered this too. So in college, as I was failing out of it, and in what should have been my fourth year, I was like on the student like government like leadership committee. Like I was all involved in the school, but I was
Mm.
failing out all my classes. It was made no sense. Um,
Oh,
Eventually,
that's
I did
funny.
college for about 2 years, go back, do a community thing, and I graduated
Mhm.
3 years later. So kudos to anyone who's gone, who's dropped out, but came back and finished.
Awesome.
But that year, the director of that student leadership department gave the like 12 different people on this leadership board for student government. It sounds really childish, but it's pretty. This guy's awesome. Shout out Dominic Catone. Love that guy. He made a CD for everybody and he put 12 songs on it. And he says, just want to let all of you know one of these songs is for you. But he wouldn't tell you what song it was.
Ooh.
So, and I think I'm open for interpretation, but I think that you could listen to all 12 of those songs and find something about what that spoke to you in each of those tracks. But he wrote a message on each individual disc that he handed out. And the message on mine was always remember what you bring to the world.
Mm.
I was like, he's a good leadership guy because I think he could see that was something where it was just like I would constantly do things to be contrary to what my gifts were. Like
Mm.
let's put it in a more kind of like example format. If my let's say my super X-Men power was showing up and making people laugh, I would just not show up. So it's
Mm.
like in that type of situation, I would not be remembering what I bring to the world, what's just showing up and making an impact. Instead, I would be falling back and I'm not. not saying that happened, but it probably did happen a bunch of times. But but I think in general, like, I think if you ask yourself, what do you bring to the world? You answer some of those questions, like your purpose, like the areas that you can grow, the areas that you can effectively change or give back to the world around you. And that's been one of those other things that I think really shaped that sort of period of my life. So we're talking about 20 years ago, not quite, but just about.
You know what I hear in a lot of the things that you say throughout this entire podcast is there is so much self-sabotaging. Like,
Oh, yes. I think that's the word I've been dancing around, that like I bury so far deep down inside. Yeah,
it's
there's
like
I
you
think
get there, it's like you get to the finish line, but then you're like, oh, hell no.
yeah, I mean honestly, yeah, there's a lot there. I mean, we might have to get a cup of coffee now to talk about that, but
Well, hey, I call them mile makers. There are times in my life that define me, and I never ever go, you never go back. Once you hit that moment in time, and there's times like my dad died when I was 11 years old. I
sorry to
was
hear.
never the same again.
Right.
Never. My adoption, I've adopted my kids, times where I've been pretty badly abused, getting sober. There's so many mile markers in my life, good and bad.
Yes, for sure.
So, what are some of the most defining moments in your life, good and bad, that you feel that you can share that maybe even kind of keeps you from crossing that line to another major mile marker?
I knew you were good. I know you were this good. um, I mean, there's a lot of things. I remember, like, I'm not really a big person for, oh, it's gonna like cancel me with some people probably. I just never been a big fan of therapy. I don't like I
Yeah.
not the act of like therapeutically healing and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
sitting down and talking to somebody in a clinical setting. I've tried it. I'm not sitting here just kind of dogging the thing. It's never been super helpful for me. Or it hasn't been super helpful in breaking cycles or patterns in my life, I
Hmm.
guess.
Hmm.
I think I'm just one of those people that has to experience some of those things, like the heartbreak and the loss and stuff like that, to really have that motivation to keep going. Now, what that says about me, I don't know. And at this moment, I don't. I'm not worried about it. I do think that there's been a period of my life where that was kind of like a chronic thing. Now, a lot of that was very self-defeating choice making in my life. And I feel like I'm in a place now where I can look back and say these were choices I was making, even though I do sometimes think, like, I saw this analogy yesterday. And it was, if you ever want to like if you ever want to tell an addict or someone, why don't you just stop doing it? Like, just stop killing yourself. Stop effing people over. Stop doing all this type of stuff. And it's like, tell that to someone who's like addicted to their phone, to go 24 hours without checking their phone. And every time you think, ooh, I wonder if I have an email, or oh, I wonder if there's an Instagram notification. Oh, I wonder if that person texts me back. That chronic ping that goes off in your head thinking about your phone is that
Hmm.
same chronic ping that in some people is their constant reminder, it's time to use, or it's time to indulge, or it's time to whatever. um and I think it's important to bring up in this context, because I think that there's a certain level of pinging that happens at times, where for a while in my life it felt like, all right, this is going to fall apart now. This is maybe when I played hockey, I was never good enough to go all the way. So I figured there was an end in that route there. Maybe
Hmm.
in theater, I felt, well, I'm good enough to get in the shows, but am I good enough to be the lead? Maybe there was a shortcoming there. In songwriting, maybe I'm good enough to write the song. Maybe I'm not the best one to like finish the project, release it, and get a million streams. So I feel like there is sort of this, like, there's this beginning, middle, and end to a lot of things in life that I'd probably say pretty consistently have felt like I can't get to that end result. Um, and I think I think that manifests, and I think my work as a leader in the group and stuff like that, it's it's important that I surround myself around positive people and people who are strong-willed and people who know how to do what they know how to do and how to show up in spite of difficult circumstances sometimes, because I think that there's an element of where I feel I lack as a leader sometimes that is that final product, final goal destination. Like goal-driven decisions is a huge thing for me. I think
Mhm.
sometimes
Mhm.
this is kind of the other side to those mantras of if it's meant for you, it won't pass you by. You know, these sort of things where you not saying you make excuses, but you allow yourself to sort of sit with letting things go. And I think that's so important. But in the context of self-sabotaging and stuff like that, I think over the course of the last couple of years, there's been a shift in that way for me. But for
Okay.
many years, I feel like there was that period of time where I would get to a spot in what I was trying to accomplish or do, and I'd be like, oh, traditionally I've or consistently I've gotten to levels in other areas. I go back and start over. I go back and start over. And I think that
Okay.
there's a certain character that's built up there. There's a certain style of getting stuff done. There's a certain resilience that comes from that sort of like conditioning, if you will.
Mhm.
And I think one of those mile marker landmark things where I felt like things are shifting over the course of last year and stuff like that is like I could surround myself around all these powerful, amazing
Mm.
people. But last year I rode through the year with this realization as the year evolved. And it was a very transformative year. It was kind of the end of grieving, of a severe grieving for my dad, some of the life lessons
Mm.
he really instilled in me and would constantly work with me on stuff like that.
Right.
Um, I had to face those things head on by myself. I had to realize no one is coming to save me.
Mm.
So it was one of the I could sit there and I can constantly supplement the things that I feel I have shortcomings on to other people, people in the group and stuff like that. But if me as a leader or sort of a representative of the group in a larger way, and sometimes if I don't have that resolve to like save myself in a situation, how can I
Mhm.
expect anyone else in this group or this group to evolve past a certain point if I can't do it for me? Why would someone else do that for you when they could do it for themselves and preserve themselves and stuff like that? So there had to be this sort of like this energetic, like whatever that missing cup was in the makeup of my chakras or soul or whatever, that was
Mm.
depleted and not full. I had spent last year really emptying that out, cleaning it, getting a sparkle of chlorine in it so it didn't get dirty again. No one was drinking from some toxic self-belief, whatever that was, like that ability to like work through situations and to come out on top as your own, not your own savior, but your own motivator, your own change maker for self and for the things that would normally drive you off the road or onto detours or over that
Mm.
cliff, I think was super important for me to go through, because that idea just that whatever I can do I can't expect anyone else around me to do what I can't do for myself. I just think there's a certain law of averages in the universe. There's probably some mathematical equation for it. Um, in order to have a true equilibrium, there has to be balance on both sides. And I was way out of balance many times in my life in these areas. And I think that sort of up and down is where a lot of sort of those dips and those sort of those mile markers of disbelief or redirection have popped up in my life. So I can go back to like talk about therapy really fast. Sorry, this is a little random. Not random. It's great. It's so funny. But the I was in therapy for a 16-week program.
Okay.
And I remember for 16 weeks saying I talked like I'm talking right now. I just talked. If our appointment was from 3 to 4, uh girlfriend at the time, she said hi and bye. And that 59 and a half minutes in the middle was me just talking. Talk,
Mhm.
writing, talk. So at the end of the 16 weeks, she's like, with about 5 minutes left in our last session, she goes, okay, I'm gonna cut you off here. I was like, oh. She was she's like, you know what? I've learned a lot. I've taken a lot in over the course of the last 16 weeks. And you said a lot. You said a lot of things. And she was like, but the one thing that I really think that stands out about you is even though you've had a lot of ups and downs and things like that, you never give up hope. I think
Mm,
it's your greatest strength. You never give up hope. You've not
mm,
gotten you just never give up.
mm.
Straight up, man. I looked at her and I went, ooh, well, I was sure hope not. And I got up. Girl, it was fun. So I was out there. I was
That's
living on the run.
awesome.
That's why I say 21, living on the run, baby. Yeah. But it's like,
Yeah. Mm,
but I think having that resiliency and that sort of that backbone of belief and hope is something that is where a lot of going through those ups and downs and
mm.
turnarounds and U-turns, that's where that's really woven into sort of like I don't say an armor, but into just a posture to kind of keep going through life a little bit.
Well, I think most people that are successful, and whatever your definition of success is, it is just showing up. 90% of it is showing up. I
Oh,
always
my dad
say.
would always say that. He was like, Michael, just show up.
That's
Like,
it.
I'm hungover, Dad. I can't go to work again. They're gonna fire me. Just show up. You know,
That's
time and
it.
time again, what he would say.
And just keep showing up and just keep showing up. And then, eventually it does. And sometimes you have to adjust your sales because there's like this Chinese proverb, you're going to land where your sales are heading. So if you need to adjust your sales in order to go a different direction to land in a different place, that's what you need to do. But you just got to keep showing up.
Yeah, I mean, I tell a lot of young bands that, or not young bands, but people who are asking questions about how do I get gigs or should I take this gig or should I
Mm,
do that? I'm like,
mm,
say yes to everything. You know who else said that? Oprah Winfrey. She said,
mm.
say yes to life. Just that idea of
Yeah.
like, if you say yes, the energy becomes yes. And then the yes becomes your wind. And then the yes becomes your landing point. And then you're living in this bounty of yeses. So when a no comes in, you realize it's just a yes in a different way. Ooh, no. Okay. Then that means yes, I should go that way then. But I think there's something so powerful to that consistency. And I think going into that 2020 pandemic period, when it was about, well, let's just get up. We don't know what's going on in this world. I don't know what's going on with my family right now, all this other kind of stuff. We were able to sit in our yes, if you will. Yes, we're going to meet and keep playing music. Yes, we're going to say to these shows, even if they can't pay us. And that allowed us to really build a relationship with music that was a little bit more based on a relationship that was for creating for the sake of creating sake, but also with
Mhm.
the mindset of like creating with a purpose. Like if we can go out and play shows when no one else can,
Great
or they're
purpose.
frankly they can't. But yeah, I feel like there's a lot of elements of that consistency of showing up. I mean, if you think about it right now, someone comes to you and they say, hey, we need to interview somebody for our podcast that we're doing over here in Springfield, Illinois, or whatever. I'm just trying to think of the Simpsons, but like someone calls you, who are the first three people you're going to think of? Someone you just saw,
Mm,
someone you just talked to, or someone
mhm.
who you have consistently had a positive experience with in some capacity.
Oh,
So
that's
I tell
good.
these young bands, I'm like, say yes to the gigs, show up and
Mm,
work the door at the venue. Do these things that allow you to be visible to a certain extent. I don't think I'm talking
mhm,
about Brits or anything like that. And I don't think it demeans the product of what we've done musically in sort of like in a integral way. We just I happen to have some of the best players I've ever heard in my life playing with me. And we also happen to just be out and about a lot, and those two things allow for a
mhm.
lot of possibility to happen.
And I do the same thing. I mean, I'm always out and
I've
about.
seen you at about the last 5 or 6 shows, and look at us here right now. You know what I'm saying? So it's like,
Exactly, see? Yeah. Could you talk about a certain song for me?
yes,
Because
get
I
me out of my zone here. Let's go into a new one.
I really love Superstar Disaster.
Oh, fabulous, cool.
Yeah. I mean, could you talk about that? What's behind that? I mean, there is so much packed into that song.
You know I'm broke
those songs I wrote on my couch, just sitting there without any music in my head and was writing. A, I love Amy Winehouse.
Mm,
B, I love Freddie Mercury. C, I love the I love the lore around the 27 Club. Um, in terms
mm.
of like the story and why.
And you
So,
mentioned Courtney.
yeah, and Courtney, and then so with Kurt Cobain, Courtney
Right.
Love, yeah, so all of those things, and there's just such like the tragedy, the
Mm-hmm.
unfortunate circumstances around a lot of their deaths and their passing. So it's like broke like Whitney, Whitney died kind of broken. Amy, Amy, gone like Amy. Amy just disappeared. She's just gone now, girl. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Kurt Cobain obviously shot. Courtney Love just got called crazy a bunch of times and got looped into the whole thing and blamed and everything.
Mm-hmm.
No, but it's just like, but there is a story around it. Otis Redding died in a plane crash leaving from the Cleveland airport right on the lake over here that no one likes. Teddy Pendergrass, crushed or squeezed like Teddy Pendergrass got in a terrible car accident, lost use of both of his legs. Uh,
Mm,
so then Kanye West kind of went a little off the rails socially and stuff like that. And then Michael Jackson like OD'd by his doctors and stuff like that. Now that was relatable to me because I would feel like, baby, it wasn't me. They overdosed me. I know what I was getting. So there was a little self-reflection in those lyrics, but a lot of it is kind of so in astrology, there's actually very significant events that happen every 9 years in your life in astrology. So 9, 18, 27, 36, 45, or whatever that is. Yeah. 45 into like the 50, 54 range. So every 9 years, there's sort of a shift that happens directionally in your life in the study and practicing of astrology that you could
mm-hmm.
observe, usually in profound ways. I'm, I mean, even on a general way, 9 years old, what happens around that time in your life?
Puberty.
There you go. 18, we're given intellectual freedom, we're able to make choices for ourselves now. So we matured into puberty and then we matured into thinkers. 27, like I think it's no that late 20s, what am I doing with my life? Finish school, all of your friends start getting married or move on in other capacity, kind of starting over from scratch a little bit. And I
Mm-hmm.
really thought 27 was one of those ages in a way where it's like, that's where the path splits kind of. You can loop around and keep doing what you were doing. You can kind of live in that memory, bro. Or you could like keep going and evolve past that. And I feel like in some of those 27 turnabouts in people's lives, it can be a very tumultuous time. It can be very disruptive. It can also be very encouraging and a very big glow up moment. So for me, there's a whole thing astrological around it, the 27 Club. So the lyrics in that song were definitely written to be a little bit clever, but there was actually sort of like the idea of just like you could be so great, but if you don't really want to do the things to kind of like to take responsibility for certain things that you can control in your life, it might just be a disaster in a way, type of a thing. And
Mm-hmm.
Toby wrote one of the best verses I've ever heard in a song.
Toby
Toby
Raps.
Rap on
Mm-hmm.
there.
What up, y'all? Camera flashes, car crashes, a princess dies in the midst of the madness. A famous rapper's tragic death's average. A star burns out, there's a baggie of ashes. We clap for who lives the fastest. Am I to blame for my icon's casket? Lifestyles of the rich and famous got the whole wide world trying to fake it to make it, only to pass away as soon as they attain it, or even try to fake their death to escape it. It's crazy. All the disaster babies with a sadness that fame is exacerbating. Cause we fascinated by angels falling from grace. A shame, a train wreck so captivating. But the silver lining to a superstar was you can never die if everybody knows who you are. The silver lining to a superstar was you can never die if everybody knows who you are. A superstar. Disaster, baby, I'm a superstar. Disaster, baby.
It really brings a lot of, I mean, it's not a long song. It's definitely structured and written like a pop song, a verse, a second verse, a chorus, repeat it, and out. Some music is easily performed, created packaged and sent out that way. We definitely wanted to do a song that had that pop structure, that radio,
Mhm.
if you will, where you're into the hook by 30 seconds and you're
Right.
into the next verse marker. Like that was
Mhm.
important for us to see if we could pull that off. I think it was just something that I wanted to do, the band was interested in doing, because I write long songs. If you got a minute and a half, I got a long intro for you before you even hear a drum. So the band really helps tighten.
Mhm.
But Superstar Disaster was definitely one of those songs that was written in a playful way, but did have some serious reflection on like, well, that could have been me. And not
Mhm.
saying I could have been Amy Winehouse, but I could have been the one who didn't survive alcoholism. I could have been the
Mhm.
one who shot myself, anything like that, So the idea of this sort of dichotomy of life where it's great, but there's also some seriousness to it. So you can get deep with the lyrics, but for the most, like, I'm curious to hear what's your take on the song?
Kind of exactly what you're saying, but you just list all these superstars at the very beginning. I mean, you just hear one right after another, and it just takes you into their worlds of disaster. And so that's exactly what I get out of it. And it's also, it takes a little spin on it where maybe it's a personal journey as well.
Yeah, I think, and Toby really does a nice job of bringing that element out of it, of that personalizing. He talks a lot about the fascination with these people, with these iconic figures, if you will, and maybe everything you're seeing is not quite what it is,
Mhm.
and that you're ultimately setting yourself up for failure if you just want to like copy them and live a life just like them. A star burns out to a baggie of ashes. Some of those brightest stars burn out the quickest. I think that's a natural ebb and flow to a lot of things in life, and I think that most times when things do feel like they're getting really good, I just genuinely believe in a balance to all things energetically in life. That if something is
Mhm.
so, the opposite could be so true. Like if I'm a real giving person, it means I also have the capacity to be very selfish. If I'm a
Okay.
very if I speak about a lot of love, it means that I'm also not speaking about a lot of hate that lives on the other side of that. And that's
Mhm.
you have to embody that all the time. But I think understanding that you can't have one thing exist without the other.
Mhm.
Baby, people used to tell me all the time, Mikey, you can't have your cake and eat it too. And I hate that saying. Like, mean? Like, what does that even mean? If I have the cake, why would I not eat it? So, to kind of my own like little rebellious way, I'll show them. I learned how to make cakes from scratch, and then I ate the bit. I ate the whole. And little sayings drive me crazy because I'll take things very literal.
Mm.
Uh, I just always have. The easiest person to drop a joke on. I'm gullible. If you tell me something just happened, I'm like, ooh, really? No way. I know I'm kidding, bro. I'm like, oh man, I don't know. I still don't believe you're kidding. But it's like, you can't lead a horse to water. You can't have your cake and eat it too. I used to hear all that stuff all the time, and I just wasn't ready to really understand functionally how that was relevant to me in my life.
Tina and I did an episode one time, and it was pretty cool. Since you're really into theater, you might appreciate this a little bit. All the members of the play are, in your life. It's your play, and all the people are playing their part, including the villains. And at the end of the play, which is your death, all the people are standing in front of you, and they're asking you, did they play the part that you cast them in?
Ooh, I love this. Uh,
So when I realized that I was responsible for casting some of those people in my life, I allowed some of them to be the director of my play,
mm,
how it obviously resonates with you.
yeah. It's sitting right now, and in that spot where it's like, oh, I should have told that person to GTFO. But I'm sitting here, I'm like, no, but maybe I accept the fact that like there was a need for that sort of challenge to my own journey, if you will.
Yes.
Like that iron sharpens iron type of a thing. Like if everything is love and light and clouds and heaven, if there's nothing to come in and disrupt that, and to sharpen those pearly gates, if you will, then there's really no point to it, because
Hmm.
there's nothing to define it at that point.
Well, everybody played a part. Hey, those people played a role. And it really hit me when we had that episode. And it took me, look, it was like my life was flashing in front of my eyes, and it takes you to different periods of your time. And you felt like, oh man, this person did this or this person did this. And it's like, I started owning more. I had more ownership
Yeah.
for my life after we did that episode. But on the other end of it, it helped me realize that I'm supposed to be where I am right now.
As I say, if you lived here, you'd be home right now. Isn't it nice to be home sometimes? Just like wherever you're at in life in general. Yeah,
Whether
there's
it's in a treatment center, whether it's,
right.
in one of your lowest depths of your life, uh, that's where you're supposed to be, and that's where you're supposed to begin.
Now my life is reeling before me. I'm like, oh yeah. It's calming is what it is. It's centering.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It shuts my chatty thoughts up for a second and allows me just to be right here, right now. I think that's called gratitude also. Things are the way they should be. What you have is what you're supposed to have at that moment. And there's an appreciation for where you're at in your life. The saying of, whatever you feel like is your darkest, lowest day, your lowest moment, inevitably, my dad used to say something to this effect, but inevitably, someone out there wishes that they could be you at that moment. That let's say you got a DUI and you got a $10,000 lawyer fee coming in. You're spending a month in the county. You have all this crazy stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
Someone else had a DUI. They came out of it without being able to walk anymore. They
Mm-hmm.
they weren't able to. They lost their friend in the accident. They caused harm to someone else. Um, uh, and who's to say which one is worse or better than the other? But
Mm-hmm.
some person might say, well, I wish that I was the one that didn't have to pay all these lawyer fees. And someone say, well, I wish I was the one that could walk again. Whatever your lowest moment is, there's always something about it that can be redeemed for quality, for a reason. And sometimes that comes for a lesson. Sometimes it comes in the form of a blessing. Sometimes it comes in the form of information that you can share with other people. Well, I guess what my dad used to say was, I'm sure you're familiar with the term character defects.
Mm-hmm.
So my dad would say, Michael, I'm like, oh man, Dad, this sucks. I don't have any, like, every time I go to hit this note, I'm going to use a elementary example. Every time I go to hit this note, I can't hit it. I can only sing these low notes. And he was like, well, that's not a character defect, but let's just call it that. It's like, well, Michael, why don't you take what you can do and can't do and put it on a table? I'm going to ask all these other people here that are singers to put what they can and can't do on this table too. Eventually, someone's gonna be like, I can never hit those low notes. Can I use your low notes, please? I'm like, well, I can't hit your high notes. And they're like, well, you could have my high notes. So whatever you think
This
is your defect is actually someone else's goal, or fulfills someone else.
what a great visual.
Oh
Your
yeah. My
your
dad,
dad seemed so wise.
oh, you
I
ready
mean,
for it?
you're just so full of your dad's words.
No idea, man.
He was a great man,
Oh yeah.
and he's still living inside of you.
Oh, he's everywhere. I'm like, it rains at all of our shows. That's him at the end being like, oh, I wish I could be there. No, no, it's this thing with my dad's name was Frank. Frank Stephen Harnica the third. The second rather. Sorry, my brother's the third. My dad's name was Frank. And it happens way more than you could even write a book about. There's always a Frank moment that pops up,
Uh,
even in the name of the word Frank. We just played Shooters this past Saturday night down in the flats, And my mom was there, my sister was there, her husband was there. But unusual was my mom was adopted. And she was adopted into a family that's spread all over the country. So she has a lot of different relatives in a lot of different areas of life and different situations and stuff like that. So the California relatives were in town for a funeral. So my uncle John was, I haven't seen him in years, and probably it's 2016. His beautiful girlfriend, my uncle Tom's wife. My uncle Tom died a couple of years ago, bless his heart. And his son Freddie, who's like 22. They didn't really, none of these people have all been in Cleveland at the same time, especially in the last like 10 years. So it's an unusual family moment that we don't usually have because we're very nuclear here in Cleveland. I was kind of waiting for the Frank moment to come up, the dad moment to pop up, and it wasn't happening. Right towards the end of our little break between sets, our drummer's family is there, who are often at the shows. One of some of my favorite people in the known universe. And there's a different relative or friend to the family, no, a caretaker for one of his aunt's friends, I believe. And she just chatting, and out of the blue, a woman, mind you, it's not about woman or man, but in this case of my dad being Mr. Frank, a lady comes up, she's like, "Oh, hi, my name is Frankie." I was like, "Oh," he was sneaking in a different way that day. But yeah, it was just funny. It's just that's just a more recent example of it, or just I'll turn on the car radio after a gig and there'll be a caller calling in and their name is Frank right away. It's just, but being able to communicate and to experience spirit and the presence of somebody, um, it gives me so much to look forward to every day. It allows me to feel supported. And in some ways, I just saw this the other day and it kind of put a lot of things in perspective, which is like someone will say they lost somebody. The guy goes, "What do you mean you lost them?" "Well, they're not here anymore." "Okay." So they've transitioned to the other side. Okay, so you know where they are. It's like, "Well, yeah, I mean, they're not here. I don't see them anymore." And the guy was explaining like kind of a TED Talk type of thing. You're telling yourself you lost, they aren't there, they aren't there. And we're missing that opportunity to realize that they're just on a different plane communicating with us from a different side. And that really, if you say you lost this and you don't do this, da da da, you miss that opportunity to participate with the greater spirit and energy around you that's actually more present now, more omnipotent in some ways, because it's more accessible. There's such a richness to being able to be open to a greater spirit and dimensional energy around us. I truly believe that with my whole heart. So my dad is very plucked in there. He's very up there pulling some strings. I have no doubt in my mind that last year when I was able to really do a lot of the things that I needed to do to let myself go, to rebuild myself and to gather myself and to really save myself, if you will. Once I was able to do that for me, I became more and more open to letting the universe show me ways that it can facilitate how I'm meeting with what I do on a daily basis, how it meets halfway the opportunity. They say like um, preparation and opportunity is where luck happens. Well, I think um, self-preservation and manifestation, when those two meet, is when life happens. And so you can miss out if you aren't prepared, and you can miss out if you don't show up in order to kind of get those things. I don't know. I'm kind of
No, you're talking my language. This is
we're
great.
really in that whirlpool right now, and I'm with it. It's not going down, just circling, baby. I love it. Yeah.
So what you're just been talking about your father's legacy, basically. What is your legacy? What do you want your legacy to be?
Isn't it weird when I go to that place when I go into my mental office to try to figure out how I'm going to write this answer here? I immediately get interrupted with what I think someone who I've had an adverse experience with would say instead. Like they came in right away. They came right in through that door right behind me. And I shut that door. Isn't that weird? So yeah, it just happened in real time.
Oh, I've had many, many people that see me, they don't even know me. They don't even know you. They maybe know you in that moment in time,
Yeah.
They formed their own opinion of you based on their own past experiences and yada, yada, yada. Nobody else can get into your legacy. They just can't. So just remove everybody
I
adverse, everybody, anything with your experiences, and just you. What's your legacy?
I want it to be big, let me tell you. I wanted to have, I wanted to be one of those things where I do want people to, it's just the greatest thing in life to see people just win. It's the greatest thing in life to see
Mm,
people truly evolve into something, to see them understand it and to get it about themselves. And I think for me personally, as I learn how to like embrace that for myself, it's been allowing me to help unlock that for other people. It's sort of like a shepherd. I think I've heard this
mm,
people called me a shepherd a few times. And if I could, if my legacy is leading people, places, and things to greatness, and that's my greatness. Uh, I feel very much a part of that overall victory. I think when all is said and done, people will understand how many opportunities and times I've had the profound chance to give up and to shut
mm.
down, whittle away, hate, be bitter, be angry, be ugly, be mean, be defeated, be dead, be sick in all the ways. The amount of times I've had that option to take that elevator down, I've either stayed put, um, stayed on the same floor I went up. And I think when all is said and done, I think it's a miracle. I know we didn't really get into a lot of details about like specific events and stuff like that, but it's a true miracle that I have any opportunity that I have these days that I do. And I think when all is said and done, that will really be a loud and clear thing that at the end of the day, I decided that life was just more a better thing shared, a better thing given, and a better thing inspired at the end. Does that kind of answer the question? A little help making sure I'm on track here a little bit.
Yeah, it does. And it's not an easy question to answer,
No,
and
it's not.
not when you have like 5 seconds to figure it
Right.
out either.
Want me
I
to tell
mean,
you, I want to be remembered for being kind and loving and generous. Yeah, I do, but I feel like, but I want to be remembered because that's what I did, not because of, not because it was something easy to say right now.
if I think of you and everything that you encompass with the band, one of the things that stands out to me the most, and of course, it's your songs, it's your lyrics. I mean, it's everything. It's your relationship with the audience. It's a lot of that stuff. But probably one of the biggest things is your ability, first of all, to bring people together. The
Yeah.
other one is that love is a verb. And one of the things that you do is the bringing people up on stage and allowing people to have their moment that aren't even in your band, but you give so many a purpose. And I see them come off of that stage, whether it's that one kid, playing his guitar, or, maybe those little girls getting up and singing. Uh,
Wow, how about that? That was
yeah, that was really cool. But to watch their faces when they get up and for that brief few seconds before they start, maybe they don't believe in themselves, maybe they're a little afraid. By the time they walk off of that stage, they feel purpose.
I think as you're saying that, I receive that and I do see that also. I'm lucky, I believe, enough right now to be living what I would want to call a legacy, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's why it's a hard question to answer because I feel like I'm in that era right now where I am sort of doing stuff that I think might be some of the most important work or contribution of my life, if you will. It's probably if I place it all together now, that where Cleveland is in terms of like of a modernizing world and society, and where the arts fit into that future vision for the city. With the accessibility we have for more tools, and it's getting deeper into neighborhoods and communities. that may have been marginalized or left out of the conversations before, to have these types of opportunities now as a city, and then to be someone who can help people get that first key, which is I could do this if I really, if I just do it, or I can do it if I feel supported in some capacity. I think just the time, place, where I'm at in my life, what I've gone through is allowing me to really live those values and pursue that sort of idea of what type of mark do I want to leave in the world around me. And I'm someone, I think it's important the mark you leave on people. I've talked about it almost this whole time. Like
Right.
the how you affect the people around you is is your worth, it's your value.
I see you up on that stage in for Winterfest. And there are what, 30,000 plus people out there. And your songs, I was in the middle of 30,000 people. And there were so many people that were just like, oh, yeah, yeah. And from Sade speaking her words to, you getting up there and just singing what you can see a man who was broken, a man who has done it, been there, you name it. And there he is. He's up there on that stage and he is showing you that he's a witness. He is like, he has gone through it. And look at me. Look at what I'm doing. I've made it. And you can do it too. You're giving hope to other people.
Someone said something to me in 2014, which is again that big land turner. That was a mile marker year for me 10 years ago. And this is going to sound out of context. It sounds weird, but I'm not quite sure where this man's fascination with me came from at the time. But boy, did I love this man. Oh boy, guitar. Beautiful man. Very wise, very mysterious in a lot of ways. And not unlike, I feel like you can never truly understand exactly the depth of his life and who he was and stuff like that. Like otherworldly figure to me, but very down to earth. I was truly in the next floating phase of my life. Like, all right, a little unplugged. I could go one of two ways. I could fall down a dark path, or I could kind of maintain, and there's an opportunity. And he was very keen on finding opportunities for me. But he said one thing to me when I was really struggling. And it was like, it was one of those things where I felt I had the talent and the charisma and all that stuff to be an effective person and a successful person within this Chicago community that I was in at the time. When he looked at me and he said, he's like, do you realize that you're destined for greatness? And
Mm,
at that time in my life, I had no concept of destiny. I had no concept of how that applied to how my actions and what I would do would manifest into what I could achieve to a certain
mm,
extent, at least if I think back now. So it wasn't like he was like, you got it going on. You could be number one on the pop charts, boo. It wasn't anything like that. It was just like, and maybe it was a little mind trick. Maybe you just got me thinking. I don't know. but
mhm, mhm,
but him telling me that I was destined for greatness became that seed that
mhm.
has
You've
grown
held on to that.
into a shading, comforting, safe, protective tree that I've been able to climb into when I need to, offer shade to others when they need it,
Mm,
offer fruit when you need some knowledge. The tree from that has grown from that seed that he planted with me
mhm,
has allowed me to extend my branches, has allowed me to grow roots. I've been choosing to water that seed more and more than watering something that doesn't grow or is planted in sand, that doesn't have a
mm,
chance to establish a root system,
mm,
sandcastles, if you will. But like
mm,
when he said that to me, that to this day has changed my life, you know.
mm. That's a mile marker.
It is. It really is. There's a lot of, so then there's this sort of term twin flame that gets thrown around a lot. My understanding of a twin flame is someone who comes into your life in a big way. And there's this immediate connection and it's fabulous, or sometimes it can be volatile and inspirational. It could be destructive and clearing for rebuilding, but they usually come in and they disappear pretty quickly.
Mm,
Almost like it
okay.
falls apart as fast as it built up.
Mm,
Um, while this was extended over a course of a better year and a half or so, he was very much that twin flame that had information for me. You know,
mm,
I feel like a lot of the people and things in our life, whether they say to you directly or indirectly, everyone is matching or mirroring or complementing something in your life to bring that balance or that harmony or that fulfillment to everybody.
mhm,
You know, there's no accidents or mistakes. This goes back to our very first part of this whole thing here, which is running into Michael Haberry every day, walking down the street, where I figured
mhm,
this guy has got to have something about him that we need to connect with. I see
mhm,
him so much. It's like a reoccurring ping that goes off.
mhm,
And when you can really participate with the people, places, and things in your life in a way that's about sharing and growing and learning and offering and receiving, we create a society, a network, a family, a band, an arts podcast and festival, and all these types of circuits. We're constantly weaving and we're living in this sort of woven planes that we all create with each other every day. And I feel like the more that we participate with the energies and the information and the skills and having these special type of conversations that we're having right now, the stronger and more profoundly impactful life can be for everybody.
mhm.
That's a shared experience. And I really think a big part of life is living, but also sharing. So you could have a band that has a lot of hits, you know, but it's not the band's music that necessarily at that point is the most important thing that band is doing in a certain way. It's all the like it's all the relationships we're forming around that
Mm,
person. When David
mhm.
Bowie died, I heard someone say, you know, I didn't know David Bowie personally, but I sure have a lot of friends because of his music.
Well, one last question before we end this. As we talked, I watched more and more of who you are come through. Tina and I often talk about masks and layers. Our layers are really thick. And I've had many layers, my trauma layers, my uh, addiction layers, my fear. I mean, fear layers of mine were probably some of the thickest. But did you ever, what are some of those masks that maybe still need to come off?
Yeah. I mean, I think you and I are kind of like-minded when it comes to some of those layers. I think maybe similar experiences have helped shape and define those. I'll be 100 with you on this one. I think one of the remaining layers, I feel very layer free in a lot of ways. I mean, I was saying,
That's great.
I don't, I'm feeling like I've peeled a lot of them layers back. I think that there's still layers of shame.
Shame. That's
There's
such a big one.
there's definitely layers of shame about things, you know, that I've been able to blend into my complexion, if you will. You know, like start to develop a sense of shame around not being perfect, I guess, in the eyes of other people. I think that's something that I work hard daily to not really give a flying fadoodle about. You know, but it's still there. It really is. It's one of those reoccurring, it's one of those shades you have to keep pulling up and down to let the light in.
Believing in yourself, maybe?
You believe. It's getting better. It's getting better. It is. But I will go back. I really think believing that I'm worth the work and the discipline it takes to develop consistency in areas that could greatly benefit from a more consistent approach um, is definitely something. I don't know what layers blocking that for me, but that's one of those areas where I feel like I believe in myself, but do I believe I'm worth the sacrifices I have to make to really fully fulfill some of those things?
Right.
So, so when you ask me about legacy and stuff like that, I'm like, I don't know. I feel like I'm doing a lot right now, but I feel like in terms of legacy I leave on other people is one thing, but what are my personal goals and what legacy do I have for myself? And it might be to really trust that I have done everything I could to achieve everything I want to achieve. And I think
Mm,
sometimes breaking old patterns and developing new ways of living is definitely a path I'm still on. And some of those motivations get cut off or shortchanged a little bit by this fear of imperfection or this shame around not having done it at a different time in my life. Or so we got little mantras to work through some of those moments. Instead of self-sabotaging, I think I could do a little bit more self-sacrificing to create some of
mm,
those disciplines and structures and rules to my life that will help just continue where I'm
mhm.
at right now and where I want to keep going to.
Well, you are a beautiful soul. You are a beautiful human, and I'm so glad that our paths crossed.
I have a feeling we're just getting started in terms of peeling them layers back and getting to know each other. I think you taking the time not only to invest in a deeper conversation with somebody is not only special, but these are the types of things that soften the world around us in a way that makes um, it gives people space and grace to find their footing. And I think being able to do that on what you're bringing to the world is so important. You know, take the time to have an empathetic understanding and direct conversation about things, I think is something that I think a lot of the world is conditioned to not really slow down, accept, and just kind of connect over. You know, you're either in or you're out. You're on time or you're late. You're good or you're bad. You know, and this is kind of
Mm,
saying, hey, forget those extremes. There's a much larger bell in the middle that we can all sit under and have this conversation while everything rushes to the sides. So I think what you're doing is fabulous. And I feel very honored to have been a part of this podcast today. But the support and the kindness and love you show is profound. It really is. I mean, you make artists believe they're being heard. You make people believe they can be understood, and that to me is one of the greatest things you could do. And I know, and I hope you feel that for yourself because you deserve to feel that understood and that that impactful in the world as you see in these artists and people around you. So thank you so much.
well, you are so welcome, and I appreciate all of your words. And that journey started when I was little, where many people made their own they thought they knew me, and they really didn't know me. And I would have really appreciated people sitting next to me on the grass, just having a conversation and saying, "Who are you?"
Yeah,
Not what other people think, not what you've done. Who are you? So thank you for being a part of this. It means a lot.
I loved it. Thank you so much.
So this is all for Real Talk with Tina and Ian this week. Thank you, Mikey Silas, for being on, and we will see you next time.
See you soon.
All right. Well,
I love you, man. Thank you so
have
much.